Today, we're going on a journey, diving into a text that could totally flip your understanding of space and time. It suggests the future isn't some fixed destination we're headed for, but something we're literally building second by second right now. Let's get into it. We all grow up with this idea that time is a one-way street, right? It just flows in one direction, past, present, future. But what if that's not the whole story? What if that very belief is what's keeping us from creating the reality we truly want? So here's our roadmap for this journey. We're going to start with the structure of our universe itself and look at the two different phases of time. Then we'll get into the real meat of it, the power of the present moment, how you can consciously create your own future, and even pick up on messages from that future. And yeah, we'll wrap it all up by talking about time travel. All right, first things first. Before we can really wrap our heads around time, our source says we need to understand the playground it exists in, the very fabric of our reality. So get this. The text we're exploring suggests that our familiar 3D world is just the tip of a much, much bigger iceberg. It argues we actually exist within an 11-dimensional space. And these other dimensions aren't galaxies away. They're right here, all around us, just vibrating at a frequency our senses usually can't pick up on. And in this bigger 11-dimensional model, space and time aren't really separate. The source describes them as being like yin and yang, two sides of the very same coin. It says they were born together in the instant our universe came to be. So you can't really have one without the other. Okay, so if space and time are this cosmic package deal, what does that actually mean for how we experience time? Well, this is where it gets really interesting, because the source draws a huge line between how we perceive time and what it truly is. On the one hand, we've got what it calls linear time. This is the time of our clocks, our calendars. Monday follows Sunday, past leads to present, leads to future. It's a straight line. But that's contrasted with spiral time. This is more of a natural rhythm, connected to cycles like the seasons, and even to the evolution of our own consciousness. It's less like a road and more like a rising wave. And this leads to a pretty mind-bending shift. The source suggests that from a higher perspective, time isn't a line we're moving along at all. Instead, it's felt as a constant flow of energy, an eternal, always moving present moment. So if the present moment is the only thing that's truly real, well, that's a huge deal. It means that's where all of our power is. This brings us right to a core concept from the source, how we can unlock the incredible potential that's hiding in plain sight, right here in the now. To help us visualize this, the source offers a really cool metaphor, the time cone. Just picture two cones, like ice cream cones. One is pointing down, the other is pointing up, and they meet right at their very sharpest point. That single, tiny point where they touch, that's the present moment. Now, that bottom cone, the one pointing down, that represents your entire past. Every single experience, every memory, every emotion, every choice you've ever made. It all funnels down and converges into that one single point, creating who you are in this exact moment. And here is where it gets incredibly empowering. From that one little point of now, the top cone opens upward and outward into a massive, infinite field of potential futures. It's not one set path. It's an entire spectrum of possibilities that you get to choose from and create. So, this is where we move from theory into real practical stuff. If the future is just an open field of potential, then we are not just passengers on this ride, we're the creators. So, how do we actually do that? How do we consciously pick the path we want? The source gives this creative process a very specific name, Conversion 1221. Now, it doesn't really get into the specifics of the numbers, but it defines the term as the actual process of consciously choosing and then creating your desired timeline. It argues we're all doing this subconsciously anyway. The trick is to learn how to do it on purpose. So, how does it work? Well, the text lays it out in 4 steps. First, you have to become fully present, right here, right now. From that place, you simply observe your past patterns, not to judge them, just to see what they are. Step 3 is to visualize in detail the best possible future you can imagine for yourself. And finally, you start taking actions, however small, that are in alignment with that new vision. Now, the source material says this is way more than just positive thinking. It makes a pretty bold claim that this process actually works at a fundamental sub-quantum level. The idea is that by holding that clear vision, you send out a signal, and the universe itself literally starts to
reorganize the future to match the timeline you've chosen.
So if we're creating our future, are we doing it all by ourselves? The source material suggests nope. It proposes that we're actually getting guidance from a pretty surprising place, our very own future self. The concept is pretty wild. It goes like this. The version of you who is already living on your best, most optimal timeline, they can see the path that got them there. And that future self is constantly sending information and little nudges back through time to your core consciousness in the now, what the text calls your I am presence, to help steer you toward the best choices. You ever get that bizarre feeling of déjà vu? That moment where you'd swear you've lived it before? Well, the source offers a pretty mind-blowing explanation for it. It's not a memory glitch in your brain. It's actually a piece of information coming back from a future timeline. A little ping from your future self, confirming that you're on the right track. Naturally, all this talk of multiple timelines and future selves brings us to the big one, time travel. So let's look at what this source says is actually possible and what's just the stuff of movies. First off, forget everything you've seen in sci-fi. This source is emphatic that time travel has nothing to do with building a machine. It describes time as a fundamental vector of reality, and to change it or move through it requires an incredibly high level of consciousness. We're talking about the ability to intentionally create and navigate time loops yourself. Now, the source makes a very specific and pretty huge claim connected to a date we all remember, December 21st, 2012. It says that on that date, all of the major negative potential timelines for humanity basically collapsed. According to this text, that means things like all-out nuclear war, mass depopulation, and other catastrophic outcomes, they're just not possible anymore. Humanity's main timeline has been locked into a positive direction. And this supposedly explains why any attempts to maliciously manipulate time have failed. The source claims that to travel through time, your consciousness has to be at the same level at your entry point and your exit point, and that's something you just can't fake. It says that attempts by groups it calls the Cabal have flopped because, frankly, the true mechanics of how timelines work are just way beyond their grasp. So, when you boil all of this down, it comes back to one crucial point. If the past is just a collection of memories influencing this moment, and the future is a wide open field of potential, then the only point of real power you will ever have is right now. This whole framework leaves us with one simple, powerful question for you to take with you. What future will you start creating today?